Hello there. Welcome to the next episode of the HC Highlanders Live. I'm Associate AD Jason Muker, joined by our Athletic Director, Matthew Webb. And it's another day in Houghton, New York, but we're getting closer to kind of the light at the end of the tunnel of our summer and being away from our student athletes and our students. 2 days, we're going to invite our students back, and it's going to be kind of a gradual phasing in of students over Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Among those students are our student athletes. We're excited to see them and bring them back to campus. Some things have changed with New York State and what's available for our gyms and fitness centers, and Matt will talk a little bit about that, and then talk a little bit maybe about some of our plans from intercollegiate athletics and just activities that we have planned for the rest of the student body to keep them engaged physically, keep people active, fit, and along with that, mentally fit with just the with everything that's going on with COVID and the separations and quarantines and things like that. People be on campus in a different way. We're trying to come up with some activities and that will engage the campus and our student athletes alike. And we have a special guest that'll go into a little bit of that, who's been kind of assigned that as part of her duties, and I'll let him talk a little bit more about that. Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So today's Wednesday, and our students start coming back this Friday. So in 2 days, we're going to start seeing people on campus again, and so we're excited about that. Yeah, just a little bit about how things are going to be a little different this fall, and some things that we're doing. To ramp up and emphasize maybe a little bit different, a little different emphasis from the department this fall, probably being a little more integrated campus-wide. So maybe first, just to talk about the intercollegiate athletic piece, we're still going to have a fall experience for all of our teams. We're essentially all of our teams now are going to be in a non-traditional season, and we're working hard to sort of finalize all of the schedules and plans for who's going to be practicing and when and what that will look like. That's going to be the biggest thing, is it's going to look a little different. And we're following all kinds of different guidelines and parameters to just make sure we're compliant with the NCAA guidelines and recommendations and our local and state health departments. And so that we'll have some phasing in sort of stages for each of our programs as they begin practicing together. The first phase will be all distancing required, working in smaller groups, just to minimize the amount of contact folks have with others. Wearing masks when we practice, that's become just a big thing that need to be masked. And so we'll be doing that. And then phase 2, we'll sort of eliminate the small group requirement and have the whole team can be together going through practice stages, still with some implementing of distancing. And then the plan and hope is that we can sort of matriculate to a phase 3 period where we can be doing a little bit more contact and engaging in a little bit more of a realistic sort of scenario with our sports. So there's also a big emphasis on being outdoors as much as possible, and that's easy for most of our sports. But even our volleyball and basketball teams, who typically would be indoor only, are going to be exploring some opportunities of doing some things outside, which will be obviously quite different for those programs. So that's a little bit how, that's just a real small glimpse into the intercollegiate athletic world right now. And then I'm doing a lot of work administratively on my end to try and prepare for the spring in terms of what that's going to look like with everybody competing in the spring. So that's a little bit of a daunting task, but that's what we're working toward right now. So the other thing that we're putting just a larger emphasis on this fall is just going to be some general fitness, just a general fitness emphasis, both for our student athletes and our students. We're going to be implementing a number of activities, events, competitions to engage both our student athletes and our students with some competitive opportunities. Since we won't be having any games or intercollegiate competition this fall, we're going to be getting creative with some competitive opportunities while taking advantage of some of what we have to offer with our outdoor facilities. So Obviously, we've got the beautiful complex of our fields and track. We've got our cross-country course and a lot of open space just across Route 19 over at the Field of Dreams. And then all of our trail system that goes through the woods up on the ski slope and back through the ropes course, a new disc golf course that we have. So we're going to be incorporating a lot of those things into our programming, and inviting our athletes and our students to be participating with us in those things. One really kind of unique thing that will be happening just this next week, when all of our students come back to campus this weekend, the first week that everybody's here, classes won't be happening, and it will be sort of the beginning of a orientation into what school's going to look like this fall, because there's going to be different expectations and requirements with distancing and masking and occupancy maximums in our facilities and those kinds of things. And our volleyball coach, Josh Tompkins, is going to be offering a fitness challenge each day for our student body. So every day, I think it's at 9:30 in the morning, starting next Monday, Josh will roll out a fitness challenge that's available to all of our students, for them to then submit them doing the challenge, whatever that might be, and we'll be giving prizes away to the winners of those challenges. So that's just the start of how we're going to be involved with sort of the student body at large and doing some things. So Jason mentioned facilities. That's been one of the probably more timely things we've been working on in just the last couple of weeks, is what does opening our indoor facilities look like? Up until just 2 days ago, our athletic facilities were not able to be open per New York State guidelines, and Governor Cuomo just on Monday released the reopening guidelines in terms of what we need to do to make our indoor athletic facilities available. So our weight rooms, the gym, the field house, fitness centers, etc. And so we've got a team working on putting all of those schedules together, making sure we're compliant with the health department guidelines, and I mean, it goes so far as to meeting HVAC and ventilation specifications. And so Jason actually is heading up that group and been doing a lot of work, particularly even just the last few days, in terms of what that's going to look like this fall. So the positive is we're allowed to open it up for our students to use. We were starting to get worried that we might not even be able to open those up, but we're really, really excited that we can open them up and they can be available for our community to use. So we're looking forward to that. Our guest today, I've rambled on a little more than I normally do. Our guest today is Coach Nikki Elsaesser, and Coach Elsaesser is just starting her second year here at Houghton as our women's soccer coach. Nikki came to us from Messiah College prior to coming here last year. She was an assistant coach with the Messiah program, which is also where she played and graduated from a few years before that. I won't go into all of her awards and accolades as a player. I'll just say she achieved just about every award you can imagine at the collegiate level as a women's soccer player. And so she brings a lot of experience, a lot of success in soccer to our program. And so we're really excited to have Nikki here. And like I said, she just finished her first year last year, and now she's in year two. And what happens in year two is we postpone the entire season to the spring and we change it all up. And so Nikki's learning how to roll with the punches, as we all are, in terms of what that means to be a coach in a year of COVID. So Nikki, maybe just to start, why don't you, I didn't prep you with the questions I was going to ask. So you're shooting from the hip here, but why don't you talk us through just maybe what it was like last spring when seasons got canceled and you started interacting with your players on Zoom, and just going into the summer and what that looks like. And obviously now the fall being postponed to the spring. What's just sort of gone through your head in terms of how do I plan for a soccer season? This is very different. Maybe just bring us into your world a little bit as a coach in terms of what that's been like for you.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me, first of all. But
Sure.
I think back to last spring, and we were actually about less than a week away from starting our spring season once we got word that the students would be going home. I remember initially that was pretty disheartening, because I will give a shout out to my team. They were working hard in the off season. They were preparing for spring season, and I know a lot of them were excited, as was I, to use that time to sort of prepare for what we thought would be our season this fall. And so since then, it's been kind of a story of adapting to new information and a new way of doing things. And I will say that hasn't always been easy, and that hasn't always been what I wanted to do, but it's definitely helped me grow, and I believe it's helped the team grow. So when we went home for the spring, the girls actually started what I would call a virtual spring season. So we got together pretty often virtually. They were split into groups that would compete against each other, and kind of had a spring season amongst ourselves where there were different challenges, probably similar to what Josh will be doing. I would give them weekly challenges, about 3 a week, and they would have to compile their scores, and then we had a winner of the entire fall. So that was pretty fun, although different than what they were expecting, and everyone bought into that. Yeah, so I guess to sum it up, since the spring and since the unexpected news of going home for the semester, and then even the unexpected news of the fall season not going on as we had thought it would, it's been a story of learning how to adapt and learning how to be positive despite circumstances and despite things not going as you hoped they would go. I think as a coach, it's been unique because that's something you often tell your team. You tell them that no matter the circumstances, they need to be positive. No matter the circumstances, they need to control what they can control and not worry about the uncontrollables. So as a coach, I guess the rubber's kind of meeting the road here, because I have to believe what I say to them all the time, and be able to adapt. I know I always ask them to adapt, whether it's within a game, within a training session, and right now within the regulations that we have from this virus. It's just all about adapting and keeping a positive perspective on, like I like to say, trying to focus on what we can do and a little bit less on what we cannot do, which can be hard sometimes, but I think that's what we got to do to be able to keep going and make the most of this time that we do have together. So,
yeah, that's great. It's boy, we've all learned how to be flexible, or if we're not flexible, how difficult that is for us. It's been, I think we've all learned a lot. So one of the things, as I alluded to earlier, that we're going to be doing a little differently this year is sort of ramping up, I'll call it our intramural event sort of programming. And so that's an area that's not the main part of your job, but you and a couple others in the department have some of your additional load dedicated to that, and wanting to create some competitive events and activities and so forth for our student body this year. And I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but I've asked you to sort of lead that group of 6 or 7 coaches, I think, are in your sort of group to put that together. Why don't you share a little bit sort of where you're at, some thoughts you've had? I know you've met with that group at least once. How's that coming along, and what can we expect to see this fall? What are some things that you guys are thinking about?
Yeah, I'll say, first of all, from that first initial meeting with that group, I think the message we'd want to go out to the Houghton community is that yet again, we want to focus on what we can do and not on what we cannot do. So we're looking to make this semester, although different and unique, really, really fun. And so I am really honored to be part of that committee that gets to get together and kind of brainstorm ways that we can compete and have fun and have things offered to the student body in this time that keep them connected and entertained. So we're really excited about that opportunity. Really looking forward to rolling it out. And I would say things that you can most likely assume and look forward to would be, we've got the disc golf course. So a disc golf tournament, I would be very surprised if we don't pull that off. That's one thing that I personally love, and a lot of us coaches have been getting into a lot. So we're excited to share that with the students. And I actually know you competed in a disc golf tournament, yep. So you'll have a little bit of advice there.
Well, and there's still a possibility that we might be able to pull off putting in an additional disc golf course over in the Field of Dreams. So we've got it all mapped out and designed, and I think we're going to be able to make that happen. How soon that gets in this fall is still to be determined, but we could have 2 courses actually to use. So
that'd be
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, that'll be one. And then every coach that's on that committee actually is tasked with coming up with a pretty in-depth plan for a different competition. Most likely looking to have those competitions on the weekends. I know some ideas floating around our kickball tournament. Another idea was sort of a bigger capture the flag type game. Now, all of these would be social distance, so they might have some unique rules, but the coaches are getting pretty creative. We've got, well, you mentioned Josh Tompkins, who's a high school, I believe, PE teacher.
Right.
So he'll have some creative ideas. He was just rambling on and on about ideas. So yeah, I think we're going to have some pretty awesome opportunities for the student body, and that'll be for student athletes and for all Houghton students. So yeah, just excited about creating some things that just like kind of how our mindset is in that group is, let's make Houghton a really amazing place to be, better than other places that they could be this fall, and just want to make it a really fun place with a ton of opportunities.
I like how you said it at the beginning. We want to focus on what we can do rather than what we can't. There's a lot of can'ts, obviously, this fall. It's going to look different, but there's a lot of cans too, and I think that's a great focus going in, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys are going to present to roll out this fall, because I agree. I think it has the potential to be it's going to be a memorable semester, and it's got a lot of potential to be a positive memory. So thanks for the work that you're doing on that, and we're looking forward to seeing that rolled out. I'm going to shift gears a little bit back to you and soccer. Talk us through a little bit, Nikki, what transitioning, obviously you were a player, and then you coached, you were at the high school level for a couple of years, and then you were an assistant for 1 year. Just talk us through maybe sort of that transition for you, just from a professional perspective into a career as a coach, from the player to being an assistant, now having been a head coach. I know you learned a lot about what it means to be a head coach this past year in your first year. Just maybe talk through some things you've learned and what it's been like coming to Houghton and being part of the Houghton culture and learning what it means to be a coach here. Every place is a little different. Obviously, there's probably tons of similarities between a Messiah and a Houghton, but there's, I'm sure, very significant differences too. And just what's that transition been like for you to where you're at now?
Yeah, so I think first of all, I don't know, I shouldn't say everyone, but I'd assume it's pretty common if you go from playing to coaching. There's a bit of a time of questioning, was I just a player or can I actually coach this game? And I just know for myself, I've always loved the game of soccer since I was a child. And so I guess I was looking to keep the game of soccer in my life. And eventually I think I got to the point where I felt pretty led in the direction of coaching versus trying to continue playing. And although I think all of us would want to play as long as you can, and I still play whenever I can, but I found that there was a part of coaching that I just love so much. I actually have an athletic training background, and I worked a little bit as an athletic trainer at that high school I was at. And I remember sitting at practices and I would watch coaches bring their team in and teach a lesson, give a pep talk. And I was sitting there basically waiting. We need the athletic trainers and I love them, but I was waiting for someone to get hurt basically. And I just remember my heart was like, I want to be in that huddle and I want to be given the pep talk, or I just want to be in there. And I think that's why I went into athletic training, was because I wanted to be around athletics. And then when I started to work in athletic training, I realized I wanted to be on the coaching side of athletics. And so that kind of is where the shift started to happen. And man, I want to look into this more seriously. I also just have always loved sports ministry. I learned a lot about that at Messiah College and how you can use sports as a platform to share the gospel, but also for character development. And I just fell in love with that. And spent a lot of time learning about that. And then I came to my own conclusion that the best way to do that is actually to coach, because you get your team and you get to invest in them deeply. build relationships and help them grow while you even grow alongside them. So that's a little bit of why I got into coaching. And then I think you asked sort of about Houghton and how that transition's been. And I've honestly loved Houghton. I think when I came to visit, you're told that there's not much around, and then you get here, and it's true, there isn't much around. But what I've been most amazed with is just from the very first day how welcome I felt in this community. You don't you don't feel lonely when you're in Houghton. There's always people reaching out. There's always things to do. People are creative. They care deeply about others. And honestly, that has been so refreshing. It's been so amazing. I mean, I've gotten that other places, but it's something unique about Houghton that I think anyone who visits or goes here would speak to it. That's something I've noticed. If I get to talk to any alumni, I have yet to talk to an alumni who doesn't say, "Oh yeah, I loved my time at Houghton." And I can see why now that I've gotten to live here for a year. So it was an easy transition. I felt like Houghton prioritizes a lot of the things that I also want to prioritize. And I've loved my team. I couldn't ask for a better team. They're fun to be around. And yeah, I've been really pleased with their ability to buy into the mentality of a new coach. I know that can be tough. So it's been an easy transition, honestly. A lot to learn about head coaching at the college level. So definitely, I say it was the hardest. I say last fall was the hardest season of my life, but also the best season of my life. I learned a lot, and I love being here. So yeah.
Well, that's great. That's great to hear. And you mentioned sports ministry. I should mention, part of your extra job has to do with some intramural pieces, and then another part has to do with some sports ministry leadership in the department. And you led us through the department inside out coaching last year. And we actually just this morning purchased a new book that we're going to be going through as a department that you're going to help guide us through. And that's been a really, really good, I think, model that's a new thing that we've done as a department, is making, for as much as we've focused on taking teams on trips and doing those sorts of things, and we'll continue to do that, being a little bit more intentional in terms of just talking about it, in terms of what does it mean. Kind of like you said, for you just became convinced that the best way to be involved in sports ministry is as a coach, because you do that every day then with your athletes. And so just being intentional in terms of how we talk about that as coaches, as a department, in our day-to-day workings with our athletes, and how can we be influencers to them, and how can, as a team, can we influence the people around us? And there's so much potential for influence, and within sports ministry, I think that's a big part of it. And so anyhow, Nikki also guides us a little bit in that area as well. So that's really, really good. Well, thanks, Nikki, for being with us. This is sort of short and sweet, but appreciate you being with us. And I love having you here as our women's soccer coach. I'm looking forward to what this spring season is going to look like for you. And I know you guys were just on the, I want to say, did you tie for that last spot, or are you just outside of the playoff?
We needed a little help from another team to make it.
And it didn't happen. And so I know we're in looking at how the playoffs went and who won the conference last year and just how it all played out. I know we feel like there's no reason Houghton can't be right in the mix, competing for, not only being in the conference tournament, but who knows, winning it. And you got a lot of seniors this year. You're gonna have an experienced group, and so it's a potentially really good season. So we'll see how it looks in the spring. But thanks for being here with us, Nikki, and we'll see you in a bit. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.